A lot of people talk about abandoned supercars in Dubai. This is where damaged supercars or cars that have been confiscated by the police or abandoned supercars.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a dream city built on sand starts to crumble? Right now, something truly alarming is unfolding in one of the most futuristic cities on Earth. Dubai, the glittering jewel of the Middle East, the city that seemed impossible, the place where skyscrapers touch the clouds and luxury knows no limits, is facing threats that could change everything. And what's happening there should concern all of us, because the problems Dubai faces today might be the problems the rest of the world faces tomorrow. Let me take you on a journey through the desert metropolis that defied all odds and show you the dark clouds gathering on its golden horizon. This isn't just another story about a city facing challenges. This is about the fragility of human ambition, the power of nature, and what happens when we push our planet to its absolute limits. Dubai is like nowhere else on Earth. Just 70 years ago, it was a small fishing village where pearl divers risked their lives in the Persian Gulf. The streets were made of sand, not gold. Buildings were simple, made from coral and gypsum. Life was hard, slow, and dictated by the harsh desert climate. But then oil was discovered, and everything changed faster than anyone could have imagined. The rulers of Dubai had a vision that seemed completely crazy at the time. They wanted to build a city that would make the whole world stop and stare. They wanted to create a place so magnificent, so advanced, so unbelievably luxurious, that people would fly from every corner of the planet just to see it. And somehow, against all logic, they succeeded. Today, Dubai has the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, standing at an impossible height of over 800 meters. It has artificial islands shaped like palm trees and a map of the world. It has indoor ski slopes in a place where outside temperatures can reach 50 degrees Celsius. It has underwater hotels, shopping malls bigger than entire towns, and more supercars per square mile than anywhere else on the planet. Dubai became the impossible city, a monument to human determination and engineering brilliance. But here's the thing about building something so extreme in such an extreme environment. Nature doesn't forget, and nature doesn't forgive. The very things that made Dubai seem like a miracle are now becoming the sources of its greatest threats. Let's talk about the first alarming phenomenon that's happening right now. The ground beneath Dubai is sinking. Yes, you heard that right. This city of giants, this place of massive towers and enormous structures, is slowly but surely sinking into the earth below. Scientists call this subsidence, and it's happening at a rate that has experts genuinely worried. Imagine building your dream house on quicksand. That's essentially what's happening here. Except instead of quicksand, it's something even more complicated. Dubai sits on layers of sand, clay, and limestone. Over the past few decades, the city has pumped massive amounts of groundwater from deep underground. This water was used for everything from construction to keeping the city running during its explosive growth. But when you remove water from underground, the soil above it compacts and settles. It's like deflating a balloon slowly from the inside. Buildings that were perfectly level 10 years ago are now showing tiny cracks. Roads that were smooth are developing irregular bumps and depressions. The fancy metro system has to be constantly monitored because even a few centimeters of ground movement could derail trains moving at high speeds. Some areas of the city are sinking by several centimeters every single year. That might not sound like much, but when you're talking about buildings that weigh hundreds of thousands of tons, supported by foundations designed for stable ground, even a few centimeters can spell disaster. The artificial islands, those incredible palm islands that were built by spraying millions of tons of sand into the Persian Gulf, they're particularly vulnerable. These islands were already a massive gamble from an engineering perspective. Now, with the ground sinking and sea levels rising, some experts believe parts of these islands could become uninhabitable within the next few decades. Imagine spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a mansion on the Palm Jumeirah, only to find out that in 20 years, your front yard might be underwater. But the sinking ground is just the beginning of Dubai's problems. The second phenomenon is even more frightening because it's invisible until it's too late. The city is running out of water in one of the driest places on Earth. Dubai receives almost no rainfall throughout the year. The little rain that does fall usually comes in brief, intense bursts that cause more problems than solutions. The natural groundwater sources that once sustained the small fishing village have been almost completely depleted. So where does a city of over 3 million people, millions of tourists, thousands of swimming pools, hundreds of fountains, and countless golf courses in the middle of the desert get its water? The answer is desalination. Dubai takes salty seawater from the Persian Gulf and removes the salt, making it drinkable. It sounds like a perfect solution, doesn't it? Unlimited ocean water turned into fresh water. But this process has a dark side that most people never think about. Desalination requires enormous amounts of energy. We're talking about some of the highest energy consumption per person anywhere in the world. This energy mostly comes from burning fossil fuels, which creates massive amounts of pollution and greenhouse gases. But that's not even the worst part. The process creates something called brine, which is essentially super salty water mixed with chemicals used in the desalination process. Dubai and other Gulf cities dump millions of tons of this toxic brine back into the Persian Gulf every single day. The Gulf is relatively shallow and enclosed, which means this pollution doesn't just disappear into the vastness of the ocean. It stays there, building up, getting more concentrated, poisoning marine life, and creating dead zones where nothing can survive. The temperature of the Gulf is rising faster than almost any other body of water on Earth. Coral reefs are dying. Fish populations are collapsing. And as the Gulf gets saltier and hotter, desalination becomes even harder and requires even more energy, creating a vicious cycle that seems impossible to break. Now here's where things get really scary. The third phenomenon is heat, but not the kind of heat we're used to. We're talking about temperatures that push the limits of human survival. Dubai has always been hot. That's not news. But something is changing, and it's changing fast. The combination of global climate change and what's called the urban heat island effect is turning Dubai into an oven. Cities are always hotter than surrounding areas because all the concrete, glass, and asphalt absorbs heat during the day and releases it at night. Normal cities might be a few degrees warmer than the countryside around them. Dubai, with its massive high-rises, endless road, and lack of vegetation, can be 10 to 15 degrees hotter than the desert just outside the city. Scientists measure something called wet bulb temperature, which combines heat and humidity. When wet bulb temperature reaches 35 degrees Celsius, the human body can no longer cool itself through sweating. Stay outside in those conditions for more than a few hours, and you will die. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. It doesn't matter how much water you drink. Your body simply cannot cool down, and your internal organs start to fail. Dubai is experiencing wet bulb temperatures that come dangerously close to this deadly threshold more and more frequently. Some days, going outside without air conditioning is genuinely dangerous. Construction workers, delivery drivers, and anyone who works outdoors is at serious risk. The city runs on air conditioning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If the power ever went out for an extended period during summer, thousands of people could die within hours. And here's the cruel irony. The more air conditioning Dubai uses to keep people alive, the more electricity it needs. The more electricity it generates by burning fossil fuels, the more it contributes to global warming, which makes the heat even worse, which requires even more air conditioning. It's another vicious cycle, and nobody seems to know how to stop it. The fourth alarming phenomenon is sandstorms, but these aren't the romantic desert sandstorms you see in movies. These are massive walls of dust and sand that can shut down the entire city in minutes. Climate change is making weather patterns more extreme and unpredictable. The desert around Dubai is getting drier, which means there's more loose sand and dust that can be picked up by winds. When a big sandstorm hits, visibility drops to zero. You literally cannot see your hand in front of your face. Airports shut down completely because planes cannot take off or land safely. Roads become death traps as cars crash into each other in the blinding dust. The fine particles get into everything, into buildings to the tiniest cracks, into computers and machinery, causing millions of dollars in damage. People with breathing problems can suffer serious health effects. And these storms are becoming more frequent and more intense with each passing year. The fifth phenomenon is perhaps the most ironic of all. Flooding. Yes, flooding in the desert. When rain does fall on Dubai, It often comes all at once in intense downpours. The city's drainage system was never designed for heavy rain because historically, rain was so rare. The ground is mostly hard-packed sand and rock that doesn't absorb water well. All those massive roads and parking lots are completely sealed with asphalt and concrete, so rainwater has nowhere to go except straight into the streets. During heavy rains, major highways turn into rivers. Expensive cars float away like toys. Underground parking garages and luxury hotels fill with water in minutes. Shopping malls flood. The fancy metro stations become waterfalls. And as climate change makes weather more extreme, these flooding events are becoming more common and more severe. Scientists are now warning about another terrifying possibility that could make flooding even worse. Sea level rise. The Persian Gulf is relatively shallow, which makes it particularly vulnerable to rising seas. If global temperatures continue to increase at the current rate, sea levels could rise by half a meter or more by the end of this century. That might not sound like much, but for a coastal city with expensive artificial islands and billions of dollars worth of infrastructure right at sea level, it could be catastrophic. The low-lying areas of Dubai could be permanently flooded. The artificial islands would be swamped. The fancy beach resorts and waterfront properties would be underwater. The economic damage would be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And unlike some cities that could build seawalls for protection, Dubai's solution would be incredibly complex and expensive because of all the artificial construction along the coastline. But perhaps the most worrying phenomenon is economic vulnerability. Dubai's entire model is based on constant growth, constant construction, and constant immigration of workers and wealthy people. The city depends on oil money, tourism, and real estate. But oil prices are volatile, and the world is slowly moving away from fossil fuels. Tourism depends on Dubai being seen as safe, glamorous, and stable. Real estate depends on people believing property values will always go up. What happens when climate change makes summer temperatures unbearable? What happens when water becomes scarce and expensive? What happens when the environmental problems become impossible to hide? What happens when wealthy investors and tourists decide Dubai is too risky, too hot, too unstable? The whole economic model could collapse like a house of cards. The city has millions of migrant workers from countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the Philippines who built this modern miracle with their sweat and labor. These workers often live in terrible conditions in labor camps on the outskirts of the city. They're the first to suffer when temperatures soar, when sandstorms hit, when economic problems cause construction projects to stop. If Dubai's economy falters, these millions of people could suddenly have no work, no money, and no way to get home. Now, I don't want you to think Dubai is doomed or that this story is all hopeless. The leaders of Dubai are not stupid. They're aware of these problems and they're trying to address them. The city is investing billions of dollars in renewable energy, particularly solar power. They're building massive solar farms in the desert that could eventually power significant portions of the city without burning fossil fuels. They're also working on water conservation and finding new technologies to make desalination more efficient and less harmful. They're planting millions of trees, creating green spaces, and try to reduce the urban heat island effect. They're improving drainage systems and building better infrastructure to handle extreme weather. They're diversifying the economy to depend less on oil and more on technology, finance, and other industries. But the big question is whether these efforts are enough and whether they're happening fast enough. Climate change doesn't wait for anyone. Nature doesn't care about human ambition or engineering achievements. The problems facing Dubai are the same problems facing many other cities around the world, just more extreme and more concentrated. Dubai is like a warning sign for humanity. It shows us what happens when we build without fully considering the environmental consequences. It shows us the limits of technology and human ambition. It shows us that you cannot endlessly grow and consume in a finite world with finite resources. The story of Dubai should make us think about our own cities, our own lifestyles, and our own impact on the planet. We live in a world where more than half of all people live in cities. Many of these cities are facing similar problems to Dubai, just in different forms. Water scarcity, extreme heat, flooding, pollution. These are global problems that require global solutions. What makes Dubai's situation so fascinating and so alarming is the speed at which everything happened. In just a few decades, a small fishing village became a global metropolis. And now, in just a few more decades, some of the greatest achievements of that transformation might be threatened or even lost. It's a reminder of how fragile our modern world really is, how dependent we are on stable environmental conditions, and how quickly things can change when those conditions shift. The gleaming towers of Dubai stand as monuments to human achievement, but they also stand on foundations that are literally and figuratively shaky. The question now is whether human ingenuity can solve the problems that human ambition created. Can Dubai adapt and survive? Or will it become a cautionary tale, a 21st century Atlantis that rose too high and fell too fast? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The world is watching Dubai very carefully right now. Because what happens in this impossible city in the desert might just show us the future of our entire civilization. The choices Dubai makes today, the solutions it finds or fails to find, will influence how other cities around the world prepare for similar challenges. This isn't just about Dubai. This is about all of us. This is about whether we can build a sustainable future or whether our greatest cities will become uninhabitable. This is about whether we can work with nature or continue fighting against it. This is about whether we learn from our mistakes before it's too late. The alarming phenomena happening in Dubai right now are not separate problems. They're all connected, all feeding into each other, creating a complex web of challenges that require equally complex and creative solutions. And perhaps most importantly, they're all warnings that we need to change course before these problems become insurmountable not just for Dubai, but for cities everywhere. So what do you think? Is Dubai facing the end, or will it find a way to overcome these incredible challenges? Have you visited Dubai, or would you want to? What solutions do you think could help save this incredible city? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I really want to hear what you think about this. If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening in Dubai, then please hit that like button right now. Share this video with your friends and family, because everyone needs to know about these alarming phenomena. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, so you never miss our videos about the amazing, shocking, and sometimes scary things happening around our world. Together, we can spread awareness and maybe, just maybe, help create solutions for a better future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.